The East is where it gets dicey, man. I'm not gonna lie.
The East is definitely where it gets
let's start
dicey.
with the front court, man, because I think the front court is not too dicey for the starters. I got Embiid, Tatum, and Giannis. I think that's the three.
Okay.
I think Embiid is still the second best center in the NBA. I think he's still the leading scorer in the league, maybe second.
Tied for the lead with Luka, 33.6.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know both of them have been scoring like crazy, and it could be either direction in 2 days. But absolutely crazy numbers. And Philly, I think I said before the pod, they're up to a 2 seed as of now. So it's like if they maintain that 2 seed level, he's a shoe-in. And the only guy seated above him right now is the team led by Jason Tatum. And MVP talks for a lot of the season, having a great year himself. I think he is also a shoe-in. And then Giannis, I still think the best player in the world. Have his counting stats been a little bit down this season? Maybe. But on the other hand, the Bucks are still a really good team, doing a lot of it without Chris Middleton. And Giannis is just the guy leading. Now, has Giannis been impressive for Giannis standards? Maybe not. But a Giannis down year is still better than a lot of people's best production. I wanted to give Durant a shout here as well, but since he just started missing some time, I did take him out because I feel like these top three have been some of the only consistent ones with that across the entire league. But it's real close because Durant's team has been significantly worse without him. And I can't exactly say the same for some of the guys that I have starting here. So it's like it is a really compelling argument. And if either of you guys decided to keep Durant, I totally get why.
Yeah, and that's why I made the change on the spot. I did have Giannis. Do got Tatum, do got Embiid. Did have Giannis. But I switched it back to KD, even though we don't know when KD's coming back, right? But as of right now, you just kind of made the argument for me. Like, the Nets have been significantly worse without Kevin Durant. And when he was playing, he was probably playing one of, if not the best season of his career. Like, he was insane this year. He was shooting like 60-something% on turnaround mid-range jump shots. Like, that's absurd. Like, the stuff he was doing was crazy. And the Nets exceeded expectations. After firing Steve Nash, they took off. KD took off. And the team was, I think they were like at one time, I think tied with the Celtics for the first seed. And then KD went down. They started losing some games. Shows his importance. Like you said with Giannis, still great numbers. The Bucks still a really good team. Even with Middleton missing time, Drew Holiday missing some time. He's missed some time himself. I think him and KD have played around the same amount of games. I just kind of got this stuck in my head like the last few weeks when Giannis has been on the court. Just hasn't been playing good. I don't know if that's because of injuries or what, but just hasn't really been Giannis-like. Holding that against him just a little bit. But I can understand if you guys both have Giannis or whatnot, because it's that close. It's razor thin, but I'm gonna go with KD.
Is Giannis the leading vote getter right now?
I think KD
is. I think.
KD.
I believe so, yeah.
Because if he is, then I might just automatically be wrong. Because if he's captain, I assume that means he's instantly a starter.
I mean, but
Giannis is number one by about 40,000 votes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. If Giannis, because that means whoever's number one, obviously it's our list, but at the end of the day, I want my predictions to be as right as they can be.
My captain is Tatum, by the way. That's my captain.
Yeah, that'd be mine too.
Oh, no bias
out
there.
Out west, probably Jokic. He's the MVP. So
I need Team Jokic versus Team Embiid, bro. Give me that. Give me that. The banter will be crazy.
That's fair. Okay.
Could definitely get behind that. I went Giannis. For my guy.
That's okay.
KD's probably going to miss a bit more time still, so Giannis is going to catch up on those games played, even though he's a few behind right now. And like you said, Gabe, Giannis has not been as good as you would expect this year. But even in a year where he's not playing as good, he's still averaging a career high in points. He's still got the Bucks as one of the best teams in the East. And this is all while, for the majority of the season, not having arguably a second best player on his team. So as much as he has not been as elite as you would expect from Giannis, not as elite as you would expect from the number one player in the league, is still pretty darn good. And I had to give him the nod over KD. KD is undoubtedly a lock for the All-Star game one way or another. He is my number one forward. That is without a doubt. But I had to go for Giannis here.
It's so tough because, like, I feel like before KD got hurt, in my book, I think Embiid might have been that odd man out at that time because he had missed some time. Philly wasn't that good. And it's totally flipped, man. Now it's like the debate might be between Giannis and KD. When before I thought it was like pretty evident, like, yeah, Embiid's probably coming off the bench. At least at that time. It's crazy.
It almost just keeps changing as the seeding changes because I think all of their stats are so good that it's like, I think KD was the odd man out because the Nets were a dumpster fire, but he was playing good. And then it was Philly who was kind of struggling, and the Nets rose up the ranks so quick while like the Bucks and the Celtics were that top two. And now it's like the Bucks have fallen a little bit and the Nets have, but that's because KD's out, so that makes his argument even better. The only guy who, like, I think Tatum's just been a lock the whole time because the Celtics have been that dominant one seed.
Facts. Yeah, we can agree there.
No
Now,
doubt.
the backcourt. I think there's one guy that's for sure locked in.
Spider,
Donovan Mitchell.
can we get it off the
Donovan-
table, Spider?
Donovan
Easily
Mitchell's
locked
got to
in.
be there. He's got to be there. If he is not starting in Utah on All-Star Weekend, there are some questions about the fans that we need to discuss.
Yes.
70
Jeez.
points, bro. 70 points. Garland has missed time. And guys keep on rolling, man. Best playmaking year of his career.
Who's been the league?
Probably the best regular season scoring I've ever seen him do.
Career high, yeah.
Best defensive year of his career, too, in my
think it's-
opinion.
Yeah, I think it's by far a career high in points too. Like I think his previous might have been like a little under 26 or maybe a little over 26.
26.4 was his previous high. He's at 28.4 as of tonight.
When you're
That's a
a
big jump.
multi-time all-star and you take a significant jump in your game, something to be said for that.
Never made All NBA. This is going to be his year.
Definitely,
shout out to him.
definitely should be his year.
All right.
Offseason.
I have my worst pick. I need to give my worst pick of the whole video.
The second guard.
I need to give my worst pick of the whole video.
Is this
dear
where he has
God.
Halliburton? No, boy.
No, it's not. It's not, bro. It's not where I have Halliburton.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Because, listen, I have Kyrie.
You know what's crazy?
Do you too?
I got Kyrie too, man.
Boo, boo.
Bro, listen.
I did not want to. I feel like putting Jaylen Brown would have been biased, so I stayed away from
They
it.
started as a
Damn it.
dumpster fire. A dumpster fire. Kyrie came back from his little. I don't even want to talk about it because we're talking about the good right now. And Kyrie, he's still just as unstoppable. Still a very efficient 27, 5-5. Clear second best player on this team. They did have the little slump after Durant went out, but I think as of right now, they've picked it back up a little bit. I think they've won about 3 in a row or something like that.
I think they won a couple.
2 in a row.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 in a row. But, I mean, had their little slump, but if they manage to turn it back around, they've got Sixers up next, but then like Pistons, Knicks, Lakers, all winnable games. So, as long as they continue to do pretty well and Kyrie's going to be the number one guy throughout that stretch, he's had some great individual performances lately. I think as long as they win most of those games, he'll only continue to build his case and definitely secure himself a spot. But it is really close. It is really, really close. I think he'll have to really turn it up right now because starter announcements are really soon, aren't they?
The Thursday night.
Yeah, okay. So maybe has one more game to get that in. But even if it's about to come out, at least ending on a high note.
Yeah, I was right there between Kyrie and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah. There's definitely an
I like
argument
Kyrie.
either way. And the fact that Kyrie is first in guard voting is definitely going to help him in the actual case. But as far as my own personal list, I had to go with Jaylen Brown here. He's about as good of a number
Love
two
it.
as you're going to get. And you could say that Kyrie's about as good of a number 2 as you're going to get, but Jaylen Brown's been doing his thing, putting up similar scoring numbers to Kyrie. Maybe not as good of a playmaker as Kyrie, but he does his thing alongside Tatum, and he is miles ahead of Kyrie defensively. He's played a few more games than Kyrie as well. Those factors definitely gave him a bit of an edge for me over Kyrie, and Kyrie is definitely undoubtedly going to be an all-star this year. The Nets run over the last month and a half has certainly helped secure that. But the fact that the Celtics are the 1 seed, the fact that Jaylen Brown has played 7 more games as of tonight, and the fact that he is the better defensive player have all given him a bit of an edge over Kyrie for me as being the second Celtic starter in this Eastern Conference starting lineup for the All-Star game.
It's like similar scoring numbers, efficiencies, almost the same from the field. I think Kyrie's a little bit better from 3. JB averages more rebounds, but Kyrie averages more assists. It's so close.
Yeah,
it's so close. The best argument: Celtics are the better team. Like you could say that, so they deserve 2 starters maybe, but it's very close, man. I didn't want to seem biased by putting Jaylen Brown in there. I thought I was gonna be the only guy that did that, but good pick, Dev. Good pick.
Honestly, if Durant was in the starting lineup, I think I may have given JV the shout, because I don't know. Then you're talking about that 2 all-star discussion, and it's like, 2 all-stars on the Nets versus 2 all-stars on the Celtics. I think the Celtics would deserve 2 all-stars because Tatum was going to be in there either way. But I guess I should say I'm phrasing that wrong. All-star starters, not just all-stars.
Yeah.
I think they're both probably deserving of 2 all-stars. But
Brown might end up being a starter anyways if KD's not back in time. So it's possible.
definitely possible for sure.
Unless they pull up the next front court player, or is it just the next guy?
I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure if that would end up being the forward that isn't picked, or just the next guy based off of voting, or I don't know. I'm not sure how that goes.
Interesting.
But either way, Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, and Donovan Mitchell are all making the All-Star game. The only question is now, who is the 4th guard that is going to be making it as one of the 2 reserve guards in the East?
Y'all know where I'm going with this, man. It's not a secret. It's not a secret anymore. Jaylen Brown is my 1st guard, and Jalen Brunson is my 2nd guard. It's not a secret, man. Jalen Brunson is an all-star, and I'm ready to go to war for this man. I'm ready to go to war for him, man. He's been incredible. Career highs across the board. The Knicks have been a better team with him being their catalyst, man. Come on. I don't see how he doesn't make it personally. Now, is he the 1st guard on everybody or the 2nd guard on everybody's list? I don't know. I don't care. He's an all-star. That's all that matters.
Speaking of not keeping secrets, I got Jaylen Brown, of course, and Tyrese Halliburton, bro. Leading the league in assists, taking a team that we all 3 unanimously thought was going to be at least the worst team in the East, if not the worst team in the league. And
15 seed, yeah.
I think my 15 seed in the West was the Spurs, and I was right about that. 15 seed in the East is the Pacers. It's a 500 basketball club. Listen, I understand the argument for Brunson. It's a great argument. The Knicks went from really high to really low, brought in Jalen Brunson, and now they're really back on that high, kind of where they were 2 years ago. He's really righted their ship and turned what seemed to be a panic mode situation into something that's really flourishing to about the best it can be right now. Great shout. But I just think what Tyrese has done, really establishing himself as the franchise point guard for Indiana and keeping them relevant in a year where they should be in the Victor sweepstakes, it just does so much for me, from not only the statistical argument of him leading the league in a major stat category, but also from the impact perspective of this team should be nowhere near as successful as it is. And have some role players overperformed, have some guys that we might have thought have been moved, not been moved. Yes, there's obviously a lot of nuance and a lot of factors at play. But at the end of the day, who is running this show? It's Tyrese Halliburton. And for that, I think he has to be in this spot.
Yeah, both of those guys definitely have really good arguments. but it's going to be interesting because I have neither of them here.
Whoa!
This is where I have Trae Young. Despite a poor year for Trae standards, and despite Atlanta being not exactly the most vibe-filled team this year, to say the least. There's been some rumors surrounding the Hawks, and of course the typical John Collins rumors, but we ignore those. Even despite Trae Young's struggles this year, he's still the engine of this offense. He still is scoring at a very good rate. Not quite the efficiency you would like, specifically from three, but he's still been solid. He's still averaging nearly 10 assists per game and continues to be a primary playmaker for DeJounte, for their bigs, getting DeAndre Hunter some looks, getting guys off the bench looks. He is just key to what this offense does, and despite the fact it is struggling, Trae has still been good enough that I had to consider him an all-star. So he, alongside Kyrie, for me, is my two reserve guards in the East.
Yeah, it's tough to leave somebody off that's averaging 27 and 10. It's tough. Yeah. Trae's that guy.
I cannot be mad.
I didn't think that you would have him as your second guard, though. I figured you would have him, but not guard number 2. So that's interesting. I'm interested to see what the rest of those and wild card spots is looking like. But,
I guess he only has defense bias when it's for big men.
Just bigs.
Guards
can be remedied for. They can be remedied for with a good big.
They sure can. And if I'm comparing them next to other guys who aren't that great defensively, well, I can give them a little bit of leeway. So
exactly.
I don't like the next section either.
Honestly, I like my forwards off the bench.
No, I'm good with the forwards. I'm chilling with my forwards. This was the easiest part of this list to make.
I might have a stupid pick then, unless I'm just not confident in my
forward number 3. I can understand debate, but the first two, if there's debate, I have some questions.
Damn, am I stupid? For sure. Am I?
The first two.
I feel like there's gonna be a guy you guys have that I don't, and I'm gonna get really salty because
How much did y'all factor in winning to this scenario?
For the guys that I was debating over, it wasn't too much of a factor. I think records were pretty similar.
We might have this.
Maybe.
Go ahead, go first, Dev. I'm interested. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. So I also got KD. Yeah, he was the one guy who missed out on my starting lineup. He gets in here.
Okay.
I get Siakam here as well.
Okay.
There's no bias involved here. If Siakam isn't an all-star this year, then I think Raptors fans as a collective need to riot. There's no injury holding them back this year. He's been great. Even though he hasn't been as good over the last few weeks, he's still been a very productive forward, still been one of the best forwards in the Eastern Conference, does it on both ends, improved playmaking this year, and has taken on a load for a team that has struggled a lot throughout the majority of the season. The third guy for me was Bam. Miami have been better as of late.
Okay.
And although Bam hasn't necessarily taken the entire leap that he was talking about during the offseason, he has taken a leap offensively. He has been a bit more aggressive. He has been a little bit more involved in the offense. And he's still been one of the best defensive players in the league, despite the fact that he hasn't really gotten much consideration at all for Defensive Player of the Year. The Heat are now up to a 6th seed. They've improved a bit from their early season struggles and are starting to separate themselves a little bit from the rest of the pack below them that are fighting in the play-in tournament. Now, the fact that Bam has his elite defense has improved a bit more on the offensive game. As long as Miami can continue to hold themselves in and around just outside of or at the top of the play-in tournament, Bam is definitely going to be my third forward in the East this year.
Had a feeling that's where you were going.
Yeah. I like your picks because I have the same one. So I guess I just wasn't as confident. I guess I just wasn't as confident as I thought. You know, maybe that Raptor bias was coming in a little bit there. But, KD was the obvious one, of course, because didn't have him in my starters. So he was the fourth guy. Then pretty much just echoing most of your arguments. Like Siakam, the Raptors have been down, but I don't think he has. I think he plays both ends of the floor quite well, and I think there's a reason why when a lot of people are talking about the Raptors selling and blowing it up, it's like, ooh, how would Pascal Siakam turn this team into a possible contender? Like, there's a reason for that. He's a player who has shown and is showing still this season that he can take your team to a different level. And then with Bam, the Heat have finally gotten themselves to a place where I think they deserve an all-star. They played a lot of this season quite poorly, but in the past few months have kind of turned it up a little bit. Not like they're overwhelmingly great, but they've just been better and really – I think they're probably safe to say they're going to be above 500 for the rest of the season. And maybe they'll fall to a 7 seed, but I think they're either going to be at the very top of the play-in or that 6 seed spot. So with where they're at, I think they deserve an all-star. And so then it was like Jimmy or Bam, and Bam's just been more impressive for me this year. So I went with him.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, I got Giannis on my bench, made that last-second switch. I also have Pascal. I can't see a world where he's not in there. I mean, he's average. He's having the best year of his career after just having the best year of his career, and then a couple years before that, having the best year of his career. Like, he's been great this season, and the one really consistent bright spot for the Raptors, even though you can say he has not been as great the last couple of weeks, but that's okay because the Raptors as a whole has not been that great. My third, I had Julius Randle. Man.
That was the guy. Mm-hmm.
I went with Julius Randle. I know it's kind of weird to see the Knicks having 2 All-Stars because they're not this amazing team. I got to give credit where it's due, man. Career high scoring. He's rebounding the hell out of the basketball, like insanely. And I've seen him. He looks like a better defender to me this season. He looks like he's bought back in on that side of the floor. From when I watched him just eye test, I feel like he's been better. And the Knicks, I think, have maybe exceeded some people's expectations too. Him and Brunson are the key reasons for that. I can definitely understand not having him because it might be weird, or if you do have him, you may not have the other guy on the list, which is fine. But, man, Julius Randle's been great this season, so I had to give him my nod for that last forward spot.
Yeah, but Randle has had a really good year, especially after a down year last year. He's looked more confident. His shot has looked better. Like you said, he looks a little bit more engaged defensively again this year like he did in his All-NBA season. So he definitely has an argument for a spot. I'm taking Bam over him, but I think he definitely has an argument to a spot. If an injury replacement needs to come up for anyone that doesn't have him on the initial team, I think there's an argument for him to fill in there. So there's definitely an argument for Randle to be an all-star again. And honestly, after having his down year last year, that probably wasn't an expectation that many people had for Randle. A bit of a bounce back year, sure. And even we talked about it to a point where he bounces back. He gets a little bit more consistent. He's a little bit more efficient, but he fills into a bit more of a secondary role. And even though Brunson has been the engine of this offense, Randle has definitely done more than just kind of fill into a guy who's being a bit more of a secondary option. He's a legit all-star caliber player this year. Whether he makes it, that remains to be seen, but he's had a great year so far.
Yeah, it's fair. It's really like a 1A, 1B situation with him and Brunson, which is, what we had hoped to see. But I think Julius Randle is even like, because I was thinking he'll probably be like, not get back to that all-star form, but still be very respectable. But to me, he might look a little better this season than he even did that year before. I think it's also because there's not as much on his plate as that season, so he can hit the boards a little more. He doesn't have to play make as much, but he's still an effective playmaker. And now he can really put a lot of energy on the defensive side of the floor as well. So, I've been very impressed with him this season.
I just made a last-minute switch for my wild cards.
I just selected. I was talking to Dev before. I had like 4 or 5 names for my last spot, and I just made my pick.
I'll tell you, I had 4 names written down based on who was not on my list yet, and the 4 guys was Julius Randle, like you said, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson, and one other. The name slipping my mind. But, James Harden. James Harden was the last guy. Cause
I was going to ask if y'all considered Harden because he's missed a lot of time.
And Harden has missed some time, but, Philly was kind of a little bit above average, not doing as good as we think. But Harden's been, I think, one of the bigger reasons for their ascension up the Eastern Conference ladder into that 2-seed spot. But unfortunately, I did just have to take him off my list. And that was my last-minute switch because he's been pretty good recently, and also it's like Philly's been so good that could I see them as a team that has 2 All-Stars, considering some teams below them have 2? Yeah, maybe. But I had to go with Trae. I think if you asked me 2 weeks ago, one of the other guys may have taken that spot. Honestly, probably Randle. But Trae's stats – and just his offensive impact and just how much he means to that Hawks team, I think you just can't leave him off. Like, is there still the defensive concerns? Yeah, but it's the All-Star game. I feel like the All-Star game, we were just talking about Jaren Jackson's the best defender in the league, and we were like, it feels weird having him in here. Like, it's an offensive-driven selection. I think Trey is going to be in it. I think now that especially the Hawks have passed 500, I think that kind of cements his case, and especially because they're hot now and reserves don't come out for a little bit longer, I think that gives him a little bit of extra time to really cement his case. Now, has some of the Hawks being hot, has that been more on him or has that been more on DeJounte heating up recently? I mean, whatever you think, I think it's still going to put them into this team's going to have an all-star tier, and that guy is going to be Trey. My second, I gave in. I really wanted to put Randall. Statistically, they were super similar, and I'm like, Randall's already been an all-star. Like, he is clearly the guy on this team. But I just had to give it to Jalen Brunson, man. I think his impact, the narrative, the level of playmaker he's been, he's just everything this team needed. Now, obviously, they caught some lightning in a bottle 2 years ago, but like I was saying earlier, when you picked him as your backup guard, it's like they hit that high, they hit that low, and now he's been the guy that's really came in and righted the ship. He is the piece. I think not just this season, but we've seen some upside, and we know how high level of a player he can be given the things he did in the playoffs last year. And, not a lot of people expected that, but then you saw that and you're like, oh, what can this guy really do as like a primary guy? And he's shown that, like, as a primary guard, he's been pretty damn good, and he's really led this team into a great position. I see why you had him higher. I didn't, but I still had him on my list, mostly because you guys have convinced me over the past few weeks.
Hey, Jalen Brunson. This is a Jalen Brunson fan podcast, man. Love Jalen Brunson. Okay. I guess I'll go ahead and give mine because I also have Trae Young. Like you said, you guys made the argument. Even though this is a down year for Trae Young, people would kill to have 27 and 10 assists on their stat sheet every night. Like, people would kill to have those numbers. So Trae Young's still that guy. And I remember a game a few weeks ago. I think he didn't play against the Bucks, and they looked pathetic. They look pathetic offensively without Trae Young, man. So, that just shows you, like, just that one game. It was just one game, but that just shows you how important he is to that team offensively. And like I said, I had 5 guys listed. These are guys I had listed. I'm going to bring them out to you. Darius Garland, DeMar DeRozan, Bam, Tyrese, and I did give James Harden some slight consideration. After all of this consideration, I gave it to Bam. He took a little step off offensively, like Devin mentioned, and still one of the best defenders in the league. And the Heat are starting to look a little more like the Miami Heat that we know. So they got to get one All-Star. It's not going to be Jimmy. Got to be Bam for me. Darius has had a good season, but he's been in and out. DeMar individually has been good, but the Bulls have not been great. Really wanted to put Halliburton on here, Gabe. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it.
Can't believe
so
this.
Close. It's so close between him and Bam. I went with Bam, especially because Tyrese is missing time. Not sure when he's going to be back. It's just the small things I got to nitpick, so I went with Adebayo. And then Harden's just missed way too much time. Even though his counting numbers are insane, he's missed a lot of time, so I just couldn't put him on there.
I understand why you had to do what you had to do, man. I get it.
It's a business, bro. It's a business.
It's just me personally, I just think I don't know, man. Tyrese Halliburton, my argument for him over Brunson just consistently will be we're arguing, like, I think there's an argument between who's the Knicks all-star between Brunson and Randall. I think if Indiana was to get one, it's like Tyrese, and it's not close. Yeah, but do you also have an argument? Absolutely, and I can't be mad. I opened with that. I understand. Am I a bit disappointed? Maybe, but
I'm disappointed too, man. I love Tyrese. Like, I'm disappointed I had to do that, but man, if there's a next guy up, it is Tyrese Halliburton. So if Kevin Durant doesn't play, Tyrese is that next guy up if he doesn't make it, man. 20 and 10, like, that does not happen every year. The last time that might have happened may have been like LeBron or something, or maybe Harden did it last year, but that's just not something that happens like year in and year out. Like, those are insane numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And if he, like you said, Tyrik, if he didn't end up missing time and now continuing to miss time, it would have been a bit of a better argument for him. But it definitely doesn't help his case now moving forward that he is going to miss a bit of time. But yeah, these two spots were tough, man. I considered 8 guys here for 2 spots.
Makes sense.
That list includes DeMar, Darius Garland, Tyrese, Brooke Lopez, Jimmy Butler, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and Nick Claxton. It's some tough choices here. But I ended up going with both of your guys' second guard picks, that being Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. To me, they've both had career years. They've both been the engines to their offense and have made significant improvements in the team they've gone to. Obviously, the Pacers have not been good at all since Halliburton's been injured. They've lost every game without him so far since he's been injured, and he's been so good when he's been on the floor that I had to give him some love. And you guys talked about Jalen Brunson plenty. He's been the point guard that the Knicks have needed. I mean, they've been without a good point guard for a long time, and they finally have a really good all-star caliber point guard, and he's made life a lot easier for Julius Randle. He's been a significant part in why he's been able to have as good of an offensive season as he's been able to have. And the fact that he's been able to move from being a primarily off-ball guy in Dallas to being such a good primary on-ball creator and shot maker and playmaker on this Knicks team, he's a big part in why they are currently a team that's pushing for the top end or out of the play-in tournament. I had to get both of these guys in here. But like I said, there's 6 other guys outside of those 2 that you can make an argument for me to get into this spot. And there's a lot of guys that are deserving of these bottom end spots in this all-star team in the East.
How serious did you consider Nick Claxton?
Not that seriously, because if I was going to give one of the bigs a spot between him and Brooke, I was probably going to give it to Brooke.
Okay.
But
I thought you would have Brooke. That's why I didn't mention him.
I
thought
tried,
you was going to have
man.
him on there, man.
I tried, but there was no way I could get him in over those 2 guys. And my injury picks DeMar. Brooke would be next up after that. But
okay.
Despite the fact that Chicago have been so bad, DeMar's, I mean, it's not as good as last year, but it's damn near close to as well as he did last year. And the fact that Chicago are not that good.
I was surprised looking at his numbers to see it's still I think 26 a night on 50% shooting, which is still really damn good. Still really good.
Yeah, the Bulls dumpster fire has really screwed DeMar for me. I would love to see him in the All-Star game. Obviously, one of my favorite players for a variety of reasons. Literally have 4 DeMar DeRozan jerseys, but I just could not do it in good faith just based on what the Chicago Bulls have been this year. My favorite tidbit about making these all-star picks is looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think this team just objectively got better. But they went from multiple all-stars last year to only 1 this year. And neither of their all-stars from last year made the team. And I think it's just so interesting because I know there's so much nuance there with DG missing some time and all that. But it's so weird to see a team get better and have not only less all-stars, but neither of their all-stars last year made the team.
Yeah. It's just how the league shakes up, man. You add an all-star guard in Brunson, Tyrese takes that step forward. Then you got guys like, Pascal being healthy for, the whole season pretty much. Jaylen Brown, he was an all-star last year. It's just kind of how the league shakes up sometimes. Even though Garland didn't fall off, he's, I think, statistically had just as good a year or maybe even better. So it's it's just how it happens sometimes, man. It doesn't take anything away from those guys, but Jared Allen he's probably a one-time all-star kind of guy. That just might be how it is for his career.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. But like you say, I mean, it's just the way it goes. Guys get injuries, moves get made across the league. But there's definitely an argument for probably close to 20 guys in the East as being all-star caliber guys this year.
I think Garland is back next year, man. If Garland plays the full year, if he doesn't miss that time, he's probably a guy that I'd end up having in over Brunson, especially given how good Cleveland was before they kind of ran into some of that injury trouble.
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, he was the guy with the first 50 piece this season. Like, he's had some standout performances, and it's just overall, Donovan Mitchell was the number one guy, but this Cleveland team was built to run through Darius Garland, and he's a great player in his own right. I just think he kind of was one of the main guys who got screwed by injury, because this East was so tight where it's like, I feel like the East was hard because it's like, oh, but this guy really deserves it. And the West was hard because it's like,
these guys don't.
I don't know if
it.
any of these guys deserve it. It's so backwards. And it's so ironic because for years and years, it was like the West is so much stronger. I mean, that's why we do a draft, is because
And then
West,
it should be like,
the West
oh,
is so much stronger.
it should just be the top 24 players, not just Eastern. Now you don't hear those same people saying them same arguments.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's just the nature of conferences over time. I mean, this is probably the first time the East has been better than the West since what, like the 90s?
90s? Yeah.